My dog says, "Why aren't you working more on your studio?" Because I've never been in here, but everything smells funny. Piper! Piper! Come here. Say hi to everybody. Say hello. I'm exploring. Lots to see. And lots to do. There is a little bit of a look at everything that's going on. The lighting in here is different. You might even notice through the audio that there's more of an echo in this room, and that's because I'm finally actually working on clearing things out. I am bringing in a friend of mine to help me with the last couple steps of that later this week, and hoping to get someone in the next week or two to look at the floors so I can get those redone in this studio space and start actually putting it together. So that's not what we're here to talk about today. It's been quite a while on the channel since I have given an accessibility update and specifically talked about anything in the workplace. And that is because, as those of you who watch the channel regularly will know, I think I've mentioned it once or twice over the last few videos, but I did start a new job about 6 weeks ago. And that job has been a mixed bag when it comes to accessibility. It is a place that works actually with people with disabilities. And I am the first blind person that they've hired as a staff member, rather than someone who receives services from us. And what that means is that essentially there is a lot of unproven ground right now in terms of our web content and accessibility, in terms of our Braille signage, or specifically a lack thereof in our building, that I'm working on rectifying by hand, at least initially, so that hopefully we can get grants at some point to get that fixed. And in terms of our onboarding, orientation, and training practices, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. I wanted to call this the almost inaccessible training. And before I do this, I need to give some context. And I'm going to give my usual preemptive speech, which is that I am me. I am one blind person. This is my experience. And the opinions that I have do not represent all blind people. In fact, they just represent me. So, with that out of the way, I wanted to talk a little bit about what can be done in terms of accommodating and training. And when it comes to my specific line of work, which I would put as child care, hospitality, human care, I guess now that I work with adults, the care fields, I suppose. One of the things that happens often when you have regulatory bodies such as DHS or a state, Department of Education, that sort of thing, is you get these trainings that are done annually that are always going to be the same. And so we just did one of those today, and I wanted to talk about, I guess, the idea for what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, and the consequences of kind of a speed bump, as I will refer to it, that ended up working out really well, but it wasn't because we fixed the problem. So we were supposed to be doing some training on safety in the workplace, so workplace accident prevention, that sort of thing, and bloodborne pathogens, which is, again, a really common thing that when you work in, childcare and stuff, you do these every year. So I've done them a handful of times. Therefore, it's not a question of content. These are things that I have an understanding of. I joke that it comes down to wash your hands, don't touch body fluids, and don't be stupid. But really what that comes down is washing your hands, wearing personal protective equipment when you need to, all of that good stuff. Now, during this training today, this was a mandatory training that takes place once a month at my workplace. And the intent that was laid out to me prior to this training was that someone was going to either sit with me or help find me someone to sit with that would be able to help me, because what the system is that these trainings often have competency tests that you sign, date, and fill out to show that you're in compliance with the training. And so someone would be able to help me because this is done on pen and paper, and I'm not able to read or write that much. I could, sign my name on the bottom of something, but that's about the extent of my handwriting ability. And things like filling in a multiple choice answer or writing in a fill in the blank they're just way too visually taxing, and I can't do it practically. Eventually, I'm gonna have a Braille compliant or a Braille accessible system that I'm working on putting pieces in together. Putting pieces in place and together at the same time to develop, but that's going to take probably a lot longer than I would like it to because of some things that are very much out of my hands that I will talk about later. But as is, the intention was laid out that someone would be able to help me out. Now, I walked into this training this afternoon and they just kind of got rolling. The initiator was, eager to get through it all and help everyone get, finished with the required trainings and on home. And so we went through it, and about, not even 5 minutes in, I realized that nobody at my table was grabbing my attention or helping, with it, because they probably hadn't been alerted to it, and I didn't want to interrupt the training to ask. So I pulled out my laptop and I took the best notes that I could on the answers to these tests, but I was struggling to keep up because I couldn't see the PowerPoint, and they were like, 1 is D, and 2 is C, and 3 is B, and I was like, 1, B, C, B, huh? So I just kind of got not sidetracked, but I couldn't keep it all straight. I did the best I could, took notes on everything to the degree that I could, and finished with that, but didn't quite get the answers I needed. I did kind of ask, I wasn't sure who was at my table or whatever, so I was like, hey, can someone help? And everyone went home, and I was like, well, okay, I'll figure it out later. And I was preparing to pack up my things, and a gentleman came over, and he said, hello. We'll call him Robert for the sake of this, but he says, my name is Robert, and I just wanted to know if you were being accommodated there. And I was like, not intentionally unaccommodated, but that could have been better. And he was like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. What can I do? And I said, well, I've taken notes the best I could, but I got a little bit sidetracked, and I don't have the paper, and I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do because the system that got set up for me didn't quite work. And this guy took a second and he said, hold on, I'll be right back. And he went and got a pen, and we started talking in the meantime. And this gentleman is 86 years old and works 1 day a week, part-time, and was here for the required training. And he sat down with me, and we started to talk a little bit about, my accommodations and what I needed. And he proceeded to help me fill the paper copies out as best we could. We unfortunately didn't get one of the two. And so he looked at his answers, and we wrote it on the back of another one, and we made it work. And as we were doing this, and as he was helping me out, I thanked him for his assistance and his generosity. And it was hitting me that of all the people in that room that could have seen that maybe I was struggling or that, had their own things to do, the gentleman that took time today to help me was 86 years old, working part-time, and saw a need and did something about it. And I really appreciate Robert, because it showed this human, hey, you are not being accommodated here, and I apologize for that, and we're gonna do what we can right now, which might not be fixing everything, but I'm gonna do what I can to make sure that this point of contention gets resolved. And expanding that to this workplace, I would say that is the attitude that I have largely been met with, and that this was one of the first more glaring, roadblocks or things that I've had happen that was not resolved or talked about right away, and that was not on purpose. I think the person who had intended to help me probably got caught up in something today. She is a pretty high up person in the organization, and so she obviously has a lot more to do than just talking to the blind guy. So, but what I appreciated in that moment was that there was someone who was willing to see this problem and not just go, oh, sorry to hear that, man, we'll figure it out another time, and make me, stay later on another day or miss a lunch break or something to make this up later. Because sometimes in accessibility, that becomes a problem. but he saw the problem in the moment and decided that he had the time and the generosity to help. And he was very frank, and we were very transparent with one another with our conversation about some things work really well and some things haven't worked. And this was one that could have been better, but I appreciated the help. And what I appreciated also is the honesty, because in accessibility, in my everyday existence, there are so many things that don't go well. And often I feel obligated, especially as a Midwestern man, to apologize for breathing, and then acknowledge that, the weather was bad, and also the, Vikings lost the previous weekend, and that those two things put together, couldn't possibly have resulted in anything good. So therefore, it must be my fault somehow that the thing that's wrong is wrong, and I apologize for inconveniencing you with the fact that you have to do something about it. And in reality, it's just the fact that this didn't work, and that's okay, and it happens, and it wasn't done out of malintent. There's no need for me to become angry and think that somebody was out to get me. And when you put all that together, I think you start to foster what can be change in the workplace. And when Robert decided to take that time today to help me, I saw that that was reciprocated by another person who saw, hey, there's an injustice here, there's something wrong, and instead of just acknowledging it, I'm going to do what I can to help. And I just really appreciated that. And that's why I wanted to call this the almost inaccessible training, because foundationally, we have a lot of work to do after today. There are things that need to be addressed and fixed and all of that. But in that moment today, somebody decided to make it almost inaccessible instead of completely inaccessible. And if you take one thing away from this video, be that person when you can. Take care of yourself first. Take care of your needs first. But if you're seeing something that you have the skill set, the time, and the generosity to help with, please approach someone and ask and say, hey, I just noticed that, you appeared to be struggling a little bit with this. Is there anything that I can do to help? Or what I really appreciated was his opening question was, are you being accommodated appropriately? Like, what are you getting what you need? To which my answer was, kind of. So all that to say, this job has definitely been an adventure and is going to continue to be so. There are things in the pipeline that I'm hoping will make it better, and I have no exact timeline on when some of those are going to happen. Some of those revolve around a situation I've mentioned a few times that I will eventually be able to open up more about and intend to do so. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video. And if you have any other questions about starting a new job, accessibility in the interview process, I have a video where I talked about this job and disclosure of a disability and a little bit about the interview process itself. And all of that will be in the accessibility playlist, which I haven't really plugged much, but this video will be in that playlist as well. So feel free to check those out. But if you have any other questions, comments, queries, theories, concerns, or anything else, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section down below. With all of that said, I appreciate you taking the time, sticking with the patience as I work through this studio space, and knocking on 350 of you that have joined me over the last 5 years of me running this channel, and that means a lot. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon. Peace.